Let's see. It's a couple minutes after 7, so let's go ahead and get started. People keep trickling in the first few minutes anyway, so we want to be respectful of everybody that has come into the virtual Metrolina REIA meeting for August, and we've got Rent Perfect on with us tonight. Dave and Heather are going to be here. They're going to do a great job in just a little bit. We'll go through a couple of housekeeping things. You guys are familiar with how this works. If you're joining us for the first time, that's awesome. If you guys have been here with us, you'll see my daughter walking in the background there for a second. But everybody's virtual. We're hoping to get back to live meetings. And I am working with a hotel in South Carolina, so I'm really trying to put us back in for live meetings for September to be all together in person. So keep an eye on your emails, on the Facebook group, on all of the meetup groups for this main meeting. And we'll be releasing information as we get things wrapped up so we can hopefully meet in person in September. So I'm really excited for that if we can pull that off. A couple other things. We've got 2 vendors. We got a new vendor that came on board with us in July or in August. That's Slate Companies, Slate Group. And Mike Cupp, Larry's going to show you his slide in just a second. We also had LaMancha Sims come on board with us, and we'll get to his slide. He's with Triton Group. That's Slate. Yep, that's Mike Cupp with Slate. And then we've also had Triton come on board with us for the first time as a new vendor in July since our last meeting, so we want to make sure we highlight them. And then we had the Goins Group. Larry Goins' company has re-upped their membership to stay with us for another year. So we want to congratulate all you guys for staying on board or joining us, and we'll do the best we can for you as vendors to put you in touch with all of our members. We've got a new member. We had a little bit of trouble pulling a list from the other system, but I know that Patrick came on board and re-upped his membership with us to stay on board for another year as well as a member. Now, I got an interesting email from National REIA either yesterday or today, I think it was today, about the REIA update. So we're going to be sending out and working with Maria to send you guys out an email that's got an outline of all of our vendor member updates for this quarter. You'll notice that IDI core that we talked about last month is on there. Rent Perfect, who you guys are going to hear from tonight, are on there. So that's going to give you an update as to where we stand with all of your options for discounts with national and national level vendors. Also in this email that's going to come out to you is a really good write-up on what's happening with our legislative side. So make sure you take a look at that as well. We'll get that email out to you within the next couple days. Maria and I are working on the format for that, but that is coming out. Larry, what do you have? Do you want to go through all of our vendor slides there, our local vendor slides? Larry, you're muted.
Actually, I just kind of scrolled through them while you were talking. When you started mentioning vendors, I kind of scrolled through them there. So I guess what we could do is we could do the buy, sell, trade.
Okay.
Doug, do you have anything for that?
Well, I did get a little bit. I got something from Lorraine Mullins. And Lorraine's always and I also saw on the chat there that Wendell was trying to get something in. Folks, let me say this. You need to get your stuff in on Wednesday if at all possible so that we can make sure we got the slides and got the stuff ready to go. And we'd appreciate it. It's one way for you to be able to connect with people when we're not having physical meetings and all. I know you can do a lot of that through some of the subgroup meetings that you're having virtually, but get these things out to us and you can get it out to a wider audience. And then Candace will send them out. Once we have them, Candace will send them out and email them out to our group.
That's right.
Get it out there. So Wendell, sorry you didn't make it this time, but I'm going to put it in my tickler file to email you next Wednesday so that you'll get it in. All right? Make a note right there.
I put that in the chat too for everybody, Doug, to make sure they got them in on Wednesday before the meeting. That way we could have them ready.
All right. Well, the first property Lorraine sent me is in Vale, North Carolina. Vale's over there on the west side of Lincoln, isn't it? Is that where it's at, Larry? Is that kind of where it's at? And what we have here is a Lorraine says it's a great move-in, fix, or fix and flip opportunity.
We can't see it.
You can't see it. Well, you know what? If I'd share the screen, that might. You know what? That might.
See, you thought you got all fancy with that camera switching.
I'll tell you what. Can you? That's right. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Keep me, Candace. You got to keep me honest. All right. There we have a fix and flip opportunity. Cash price $84.9 in Vale, North Carolina. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,440 square feet, 3.75 acres. One of the questions I would have is this sitting right in the middle of it? Is there opportunity to put more units on this land? I would think in Vale it wouldn't be that the zoning wouldn't be that strict. Larry, do you know anything about that property? Does it have?
I really don't, and I don't know if
really
Lorraine
don't.
is on here or not.
I do.
Lorraine's on here. Let us know because that would help somebody if they could subdivide a lot maybe there, you know.
Lorraine can talk now. I unmuted her.
Okay.
We can't hear if she's talking, but I can tell you, Doug, that with the question that you've got, I've been out to this property and it does not sit in the middle. There, a lot of the land is still wooded, so it could be cleared. I think the ladies' kids were using it for some dirt bike 4-wheeler trails back up and through there. So there's definitely a lot of land behind it where you could put something like what you're talking about, probably subdivide it off and put some other property up there.
Okay, well that's a good thing to do out there. Built in 1992, it's a double wide with new vinyl siding. Look at that ARV, and similar have sold for 130, 185. And you got about 20,000 in updates and repairs. Potential profit there, 45,000. Look there at the major repairs needed. Not a whole lot. Flooring, some electrical outlets, molding, back porch. Lorraine says you better hurry. Great move-in opportunity. And we got a few pictures there you can see of the property and all. And you're going to get this stuff mailed out to you. If you're on the call tonight, you'll get this mailed out to you. So let me stop. Get rid of that. She's got another one over in Claremont, North Carolina. Claremont, that's up there off of I-40, I believe, on the other side of Hickory. Cash price $94.9, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, smaller lot, 3/4 of an acre. 1,800 square foot house built in 1954. I like the looks of that. I think that looks similar to a house I rehabbed a couple of years ago.
This one, Doug, this one can be lived in right now. There's nothing wrong with it functionally. It just needs to be updated. And it's got 2 buildings in the back as well that are staying on site.
Okay. So we have a cash price of $94.9, ARV $189. And that's depending on what you're talking about. If you just move a renter in there, it's obviously not going to be worth that. But if you go in there and modernize it, fix it up, put a little glam on it, you can sell. In the neighborhood, selling for $162 to $185 fixed up.
That's right. Think, right? Up.
Yeah. So there you go, 20 to 30 pairs. And this is one of the things you need to do, guys, when you send us something. What I like, major repairs needed. If you can put, so that a lot of times people will know, if you say foundation repairs, some people are just going to walk away from it right then. But that's good to know. So if you know of it may even bring you more buyers because opportunity. And I like that. Shutters need paint. Carpet needs to be cleaned and replaced. Hardwood. Hardwood's like finding gold nowadays. If you find hardwood under carpet. Some ceiling and wall, no active leaks. But it too could be updated. Look at it, got a refrigerator. Yeah, it looks like it could be cleaned up and moved into. Carpet needs new carpet. Mm-hmm. you know, that sort of thing, but looking good. Lorraine, your number is 803-675-7165 or Lorraine at investorsrehab.com. So thank you, Lorraine, for sending those in. Here's the thing. We can highlight yours too. Get it in. We can highlight it. Tell people what you got and all. And if you even want to send in the script, that'll be fine too. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop the share right now. So back to you, Candace.
Back to me. Back to
Back
me
to
in
you.
lovely Waxhaw, North Carolina. Larry, you want to go? I know the vendors are next. We need to let everybody know all the vendors, local vendors that we've got on highlight this month, please, sir.
Sure, I'll pull it up here and you can talk about them if you would be so inclined. We already know about Lorraine.
She's still showing up. Is she? She was muted. Did you mute her back, or is she?
She's
I don't
muted.
know.
Muted back. All right. So Lorraine is an asset manager with Investors Rehab. We've got her contact information there on the screen, Lorraine at investorsrehab.com, and her lovely little face. She sells everything that Investors Rehab's got. So anything that you see come across the lines for sales, she's who you need to talk to get it under contract.
And she is a rock star.
Wendy Sweet, Bill Fairman with CarolinaHardMoney.com, 803-831-2262. They've been longstanding members of Metrolina REIA and have Carolina Capital Management and really can do any type of structure, any type of hard money deal. So if you've got something that you may not be able to get done through anybody else, give them a shout, try them out, and then next time just go to them first. Swinging Monkey Media is Frank Caldwell. He's got different services for real estate agents and brokers, investors, as well as you guys see up there at the top, small and medium-sized businesses. He does website generation, social media marketing management, text message marketing, and virtual tour services. So give him a call, 864-934-8346, or send him an email, office@swingingmonkeymedia.com. Triton is one of our newer vendor members. LaMancha Sims is the managing director for this company, and they are able to provide alternative private lender real estate for investors and home builders. You guys see here, we've got the little blurb. Their team of real estate professionals, construction management consultants, and financial experts specialize in real estate development and real estate investor lending. So give LaMancha's office a call, 866-987-4866. We need to get his email on here. I need to write that down. Larry, you could have gone ahead and done these. Pantheon Private Lending is another lender that we've got as a local vendor here. You guys can reach out to them. Private lending for real estate investors, fix and flip investors, buy and hold investors, ground up construction, direct lender located in the Triangle. They say they've got personalized service, competitive terms, and minimal bureaucracy. So give Daniel or Ryan a call. Their numbers are there, and each of their emails are there. And for members, REIA members that are on the call, this recording goes into the members portal, the members area, so you guys can pull this up anytime. Also, their information is located on our vendor members page, our preferred vendors page on the website. This is Slate. This is Mike Cup. Slate Building Group, their depth of experience with investors, large and small, provides a knowledge and resource base that creates a backdrop for success. So make sure you reach out to them, whether you're doing fee-based build to rent, project scope analysis, rehab rent, and rehab to retail. Give them a call or email over to Mike at construction@slatebg.com. Now, if you guys have a business and you're wanting to become a preferred vendor member, what I would really like is if we have any. We don't have any preferred vendor members right now that are general contractors or that have construction companies or the ability to do the actual rehab for our members. So I need some of you guys to reach out and join us as a vendor member so that we can highlight you as well to our members. If you've got another type of business that you are thinking about wants to be highlighted as a vendor, make sure you email me exec@metrolinaria.org.
Candace, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got more vendors than this. They've just been reluctant to get their information in there to you so that you can put it on a slide. Isn't that correct?
That's right. Our website's got all of our preferred vendor members on it. The ones that are highlighted each month are the ones that are taking action and have sent me their information to be able to put it on a slide. Right? You're exactly right, Doug, to share it to the virtual attendees.
And how much does that cost them to send you the information to put on the slide?
Nothing. It's included in what they already pay. We're just trying to get them in front of people.
Okay.
These are some of the national level vendors that our REIA members have access to. You've got Home Depot, you see Rent Perfect there, Arcana, Build a Sign. Now, members also, just want to remind you that in the membership portal, you have instructions with several of these vendors on how to get the discounts. So make sure you check out your membership portal on how to contact them, how to set up, what numbers you need, what information you need to give to be able to get those good discounts. If you've got any questions on what you get from each of those, you could also email me at exec@metrolinaria.com.
Candace, I'd like to mention just one of them. Oh, will you go ahead? Go ahead and mention PropStream.
I didn't even know this was still up here, but PropStream is in communication with us about being an affiliate with us to be able to give discounts to our Metrolina REIA members. You can go to metrolinaria.com/PropStream and get a 7-day free trial, and then also gives you the free one-page offer to purchase contract too.
Well, we're all ready to Dave, aren't we?
We are on it.
All right, Dave, you need to get ready. I'm gonna introduce you as best I can. Folks, we've got some information up there about you being a licensed private eye and owner of AAA Landlord Services and Rent Perfect. I met Dave 6 years ago, something like that, up in Cincinnati at National REIA. We were in a brainstorming session, and it was like he kept looking over there like, who? But no, I enjoyed meeting Dave, and over the years we've had opportunity to wife Stephanie, his children, and enjoyed that, and also with Heather, who works there. They've got a great product. It's not as fully disseminated into our marketplace as it should be, but it is a product that if you're a landlord, it's going to flip this thing on the tenant, trying to figure out who your best tenants are and all. As an investigator, Dave's got a background that they know what to look for when they're giving you a thumbs up or a thumbs down when it comes to your tenants and all. So I want you to listen carefully tonight, because Dave's not only going to talk a little bit about his product on occasion, but he's going to give you some insight into what's going on in the marketplace today, what's going in our nation with respect to landlords, because he's a landlord himself and he deals with these very same issues each and every day. So take it away, Dave. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. What a nice intro. You know, I'm on that national REIA list as a national REIA vendor, but I really want to be down on the local level, because I don't want to be seen as one of these just ginormous companies that don't care about their clients. We actually are a medium-sized screening company. We're not the largest, we're not the smallest, but we really want to be that screening company that you can call and get a live person and get a lot of help. So, you see us up on the national stage. We really want to be down as a local Metrolina vendor because we think that that's where we fit, and we want to certainly make sure your vendors are being taken care of. Heather, unmute yourself, and let me introduce you real quick. This is Heather Johnson. Heather's going to kind of co-host with me tonight. Sometimes it's easier to listen to two people than just one person constantly, but she's going to kind of run the controls. We're going to hear a little bit from her. Heather, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So Dave's asked me to attend for a very special reason, which we'll get to, but I'm happy to be here, and it's great.
Perfect. Before we kind of get into our presentation tonight, I kind of want to just talk to you a little bit about where I think we are in the nation right now as far as rentals. Like Doug said, I am a landlord. I also own an eviction company and also have the background company. So I kind of am playing in those, in those fields where non-payment of rent happens. And so as most of you know, the CARES Act for the national moratorium expired July 26th. You could start giving 30-day notices out to your tenants for evictions. As you know, they're trying to continue that, but both sides can't get together in Washington. And so we're kind of hoping that eviction moratorium doesn't continue. But let me kind of tell you what I see and what's happening. Because we process the evictions, we've been sending out a ton of 30-day notices that have $4,000 to $8,000 worth of rent that is owed. These are going to result in $4,000 to $8,000 judgments on people, and are really going to hurt them. It's dug them such a big hole. If they couldn't pay 1 month's rent, there's no way they're going to pay 4 months rent. And as I talk to my clients, because everybody's really worried about filing evictions right now, because evictions, as you know, usually are fall under state statute. The federal government came out and just wiped across this country this federal law. They're not even in this business. They don't know how to write the laws, and they've written this moratorium so terribly that the attorneys are just kind of just playing it safe and giving these 30-day notices. But because of that, I know several attorneys here in Arizona have been sued because they filed evictions on people that qualified under the CARES Act when their client said they weren't under the CARES Act. Now, what I'm getting to is a lot of our clients are talking their tenants into just moving out. I won't file an eviction on you. I won't put the judgment on you. Just to get out so I can get someone in here who pays. Well, as a background screener and a private investigator, I love when people file evictions because then I can catch those in the court. And I can see that these people were evicted. When they just skip out and leave, there is no documentation or record anywhere that someone was behind on their rent for 4 months and they just left. So I want to tell you before we get started how to protect yourself, because I think we're going to see an issue over the next 2 years. Right now, the pool of active renters around the United States looking for property right now is not that great. It was good a while ago, but now we have a lot of people that are leaving their homes or getting evicted, and they're going to be applying with new landlords. Now, I'm not sure if over in the Carolinas, if you guys have gotten some assistance from your governor and that this is even an issue for you. This is an issue for us here in Arizona. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. This is something that you might not know. Number one, evictions and judgments are no longer on credit bureaus, okay? And if they're not on credit bureaus, they're not going to affect a credit score. So you can get an eviction right now, you can get a judgment, and your score on your credit bureau does not change and it does not show up. The credit bureaus were getting sued by tenants too much to continue to put judgments and evictions on credit bureaus. So you are not even going to know if you're just counting on a credit bureau if someone was evicted or not. So we need to do a couple things. Now at Rent Perfect, we have a separate eviction search. We do some research separately that will get you that data, but most companies rely on the credit bureaus to give them judgments and evictions. So just to let you know that many companies are gonna miss those. So here's what you do. Because I'm a landlord, I'm requiring all my new applicants to show me proof of payment within the last 4 months, okay? I want to know that they paid their rent in the last 4 months. So whether it's canceled checks, bank statements, if I need to call and do a residential verification and talk to their landlord, I want to make sure that they have paid their rent in the last 4 months. Now, I've personally, over the years, because of all the tools I have, I've gotten away from residential verifications, but I'm back to them now because this circumstance causes us to get back to rental verifications, calling the past two landlords. But here's what I also want you to do and to know. I want you to give good rental verification. So if someone calls you, we need to protect each other right now, because I can tell you the government's not protecting you right now. The courts aren't protecting you. The tenants aren't protecting you. We have to band together right now and make sure that if we had someone in our rental unit that wasn't paying rent, that was protected by the moratorium, that they don't do that to another landlord. So I'd really want you guys just to work together, do your landlord verifications, check for if their rent was paid. And then if you're using another screening company, make sure that they're scouring your local courts to pull up those evictions. So there's my state of the nation. There's how to protect yourselves. I don't want you to get burned again. I have a lot of clients who call us upset, and I just don't want them to see and put the wrong person back into their unit again. Heather, do you have anything to say about that? Because you hear a lot about this too.
Yeah, I mean, we have a big problem going on, and like David said, in Arizona and on social media, I'll see people all the time, oh, I don't have to pay my rent right now. And the tenants have been misinformed and the landlords are being hurt from it. And just one other aspect is those that do get judgments, that's going to put them in a bad state. I mean, their income is going to be garnished from the job that they do get. A lot of them have jobs, they just haven't been paying their rent because they don't think they have to right now. So it's a mess. It's just one of the ways that everything just seems to be stacking up against landlords who are just doing their best to get a little ahead, be responsible. They're providing housing. And so I like what you say, just sticking together, give those rental verifications if you get one. If you get a call, do what you can to help another landlord out.
So I think you make a great point. My friends that own collection companies right now are salivating because they have all this new paper and judgments coming their way that they're going to be sifting through and filing garnishments on people for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And so you get an application and it says, hey, I make $2,000 a month, I can pay the rent, but all of a sudden now I'm only going to make $1,500 a month because I've been garnished $500 for that judgment that I got. So thank you for that. So let's get on talking about Rent Perfect a little bit, Heather.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me just a second.
And while you're doing that, Heather, I heard that you're going to go buy your first rental. Is that true?
I am. Well, actually, I'm going to buy another home, and this has been kind of a long time coming. I am getting ready to take the leap, and I'm going to have my first rental property. So I have a feeling that's why David has invited me here today. So over the years, I've spoken to so many landlords. I've heard the horror stories, but I've also seen pictures like this of the success. And so that's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm focusing on, because I know David, I've been trained very well. It is still a little nerve-wracking in a good way, but I'm excited to take that leap and be a landlord myself. And it's been a long time coming. So
perfect. Well, I want everybody to sit back right now, look at this picture, and just tell me how you feel. I mean, obviously we're on a Zoom, you all can't tell me how you feel, but just think to yourself, how do I feel looking at this picture? What does this say to me? And to me, it just says success. It says, if these are my tenants, it says I'm getting rent, they're taking care of my property. My whole plan is working. I bought a property to get ahead, and I'm going to get my monthly rent, and my appreciation is going to go up. And this to me just looks like, okay, I'm going to be successful. Now forward to the next slide. Now let's look at this. How do you feel? How would you feel if this was your property and you walked in there and you saw this?
well, the first slide is like complete carefree joy, and this is just like a dark cloud comes in. I think it's every landlord's worst nightmare, and a lot of tenants don't even think about this. So
absolutely. But if I can get landlords to think of the first picture and feel that, they're going to be successful. They're going to have You know, they're going to buy more units. But most people that want to be a landlord, they think they want to own property, but then their mind goes into this spot right here, this picture, right? People are going to thrash my home. I'm not going to get my rent, you know, and this is going to be a total bust, but your mind ends up doing that, right? So tonight, as we're talking about doing proper screening, I also want to talk about building confidence as an investor to say, hey, I know what I'm doing. This is the best business in the world, and I can take that leap. So if you're on the call tonight and you're thinking, I want to be a long-term hold landlord, I want to be, but man, I've heard these stories. And Heather, you told me, I think your mortgage lady told you some stories.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been going through. And you know, the longer I've worked for you, the better I feel. But I mean, everyone has something to say about, oh, are you sure you really want to rent a home? You want to, you know, have a rental property? Why would you want to do that? Oh, I've heard so many horror stories, and I'm sure all of you have heard a horror story, but I've also heard so many success stories that if you get the right tools and you take the right approach, you can be like the couple in the first picture and, you know, just be happy that someone else is going to pay your mortgage and you can be happy about it. They can be happy to live at your place and help you take care of it rather than, you know, constantly worrying about this second picture.
Awesome. So let's not spend much time on this. We absolutely know that things can go wrong. That's not where I like to focus, but here's how I teach it. You have two investments. Your first investment is the property that you buy, you jump the fence, you look through the windows, you find out a REIA, and you make the decision, you know, this is the one for me. I'm going to buy this and do a long-term hold. If your strategy is a long-term hold, really that investment is important. But the next investment, your second investment, is the person who you're going to put into that property can make or break your investment. So you can buy one of those homes that we just saw on this slide, and you can have $40,000 there in equity. But if you get the wrong person that puts a meth lab in the middle of it and you need meth lab remediation, you might not have $40,000 in equity anymore, right? So I call this second investment, it's obviously a tenant, but I call them a business partner. And I don't look at my applicants and my future tenants as that. I look at them as business partners. And I want to ask you guys the question, just think in your mind, if you were all excited to open up a new business, who would you open up a new business with? Would it be just a stranger, somebody who hands you an application and says, hey, I want to be your business partner? No, you'd pick a friend you've known for a long time, a family member. But think about it. When we have these rentals, we're really picking a business partner, and we put an ad out on Zillow or wherever we do, and a guy shows up and says, I want your home. And we actually have a business partnership relationship where you're going to take care of an asset of mine for $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. And our business agreement, we're going to call that a lease. But if you turn around and you look at, they're not your tenant, they're your business partner, I think you would pick them and be a little bit more diligent in what you do instead of just rent to the very first person who shows you money.
Definitely.
Here's another one that we want you to be successful, and we want you jumping for joy in the fields and not having headaches.
Yeah, well, when you go, like me right now going into this, if you do things the right way, if you take the right approach, if you use the right tools and think of it as an exciting business venture that someone's going to help you pay that mortgage, you're going to have a lot different approach. And David has always taught me really how you're handling things from the beginning is going to train your tenant what kind of business relationship this is going to be. So if from the beginning, you know, you're making exceptions, if you're too hasty to hand over the keys, then you're going to find yourself with a headache. So just really making sure you do things right from the beginning.
Absolutely. I even let my applicants know that I'm looking for a business partner, and I use that word with them. I'm not looking for a tenant. I'm looking for a business partner, one that I can trust, you know, and one that will take care of this property. And I laid out to them, here's what I will do. If you pay me the rent, I will make sure the air conditioning's fixed and you have a great place to raise your family. And I'll live up to my side if you live up to your side, and we'll have a great relationship. And, you know, one thing about me being a private investigator and an officer of the court here in Arizona, we process evictions. And many of you might not be able to use this, but I let them know what I do for a living. And I said, if you don't think you can get me rent on the first, we're going to have a problem, because it's real easy for me, to go down to the court and file. Now that sounds mean. And a lot of people might say, Dave, that's mean. Now, the person that's never had an eviction or going to have an eviction, like you said that to me, I would say, well, that's not going to be a problem. It's not even worth talking about. To the person who gets a little bit offended by it, I feel I've realized that when I've done their background, that's because they've had an eviction or they're not really good at paying their payments on the first. And Heather, you make a great point. And I teach, if you allow them to pay rent on the 5th every month, when are you going to get rent the next month? On the 5th, even if it's due on the 1st, right? Now I have a clause that says, hey, I won't charge you late fees through the 4th if you pay me by the 5th. It doesn't say the rent's due on the 5th. It just says I'm not going to charge you late fees until the 5th. So the 5th turns into the 6th, turns into the 10th, turns into the 15th, right? And if I get rent on the 15th, then the next month's going to be the 15th. So I love how you say you need to set your parameters. You need to stick with them. It's real easy to let things go and have compassion, but I'm just telling you, if you let it go this time, you're setting a precedence of letting it go into the future, and that's going to cause you a lot of grief.
Yeah, well, just kind of going back to this, I mean, why are you becoming a landlord? Why are you going to have a buy and hold property? If it's, because you want to give charity, then that's your decision. But if you're in it because you need someone to pay this mortgage and you're in it for an investment, then you need to treat it like that business relationship. And when you treat it like the business relationship and are more careful about who you're going into business with, it's going to have a better experience.
Absolutely.
Do we have time for this video?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, this is a fun little video that we're going to show.
It's just, there's all this pressure, And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't!
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
I love that. I love that video because I have people come into my office all the time and they're saying, I will never be a landlord again. I will never. They thrashed my house. They didn't pay rent. And they're going over all the things that we just talked about. And I can see that nail in their head so often because they were so concerned about the first investment, right? The home, the apartment, that they absolutely did not spend any time on vetting that second investment, that business partner, or that future tenant. So if you feel like you're constantly having struggles with your tenants, if you're a current landlord on this call, you might hate me for this comment, but it's your fault. I'm sorry. If you're dealing with bad tenants that are calling you all the time, bugging you, it is your fault. I'm so sorry, but you've set that precedence. And let me give you an example. I had a gal named Nikki. She rented from me for 5 years, a 3-bedroom home. She was great. She paid her rent on time. She tried to take care of the place as much as she could. I obviously took care of the big stuff. And Nikki then called me one day and she said, Dave, I'm so excited. I'm getting married. And we're going to have a blended family. And so we're taking my kids and his kids. But the 3 bedrooms too small. Do you have any 4 bedrooms? And I said, I actually do. I have one coming up in a month. And she's like, you know what? That would be perfect. It's in the same neighborhood. My kids can stay. It was a miracle that this whole situation happened. And so I was so happy to have a great business partner of mine want to move over to another home. And so she moved in the other home. I got it all nice and put some wood floors in there and some granite countertops. And she'd really taken care of my prior home. So I put in a little bit extra normally than I would. And it was great for like the first month. And then all of a sudden this husband starts calling me. And he says, Dave, the sprinkler head broke in the front yard. Okay. Great. Later, the toilet's leaking and the little flap just needs to be replaced. Okay. My light bulb is out in my fan. And at some point, I'm really, really frustrated. And I had to turn to myself and say, why are you putting up this? Your lease says anything under $50 is your business partner's relationship, is your business partner's responsibility. And so I had to go over there and have a conversation with the husband. It wasn't an easy conversation, but I said, Brant, Nikki's rented for me for 5 years, and Nikki has been a fantastic renter. I got you this home. I said, but I want you to know, along with your rent doesn't come a full-time maintenance man. Okay, here's the lease. Here's what you've signed. Here's the clause that I'm looking at. Anything under $50, you need to take care of. If a sprinkler head breaks, you need to fix the sprinkler head. If the toilet's leaking, you need to fix the toilet flap. It's $7.95 down at Home Depot, takes you 2 seconds. If you definitely need to change your own light bulbs. And I just had to let him know that the relationship between me and them weren't of a maintenance man. So I didn't want these phone calls. I run 5 companies, 14 rentals without a property management company. And I've done that using the Rent Perfect system that we're going to show you here in a little bit. But it's allowed me not to skip a beat. It's allowed me to manage my rentals from home, from my business, at lunch, in my car. It's great, and you're really going to love it. But the point that I had to let him know was, I'm not a maintenance man. And it was interesting because 2 weeks ago, I got a call that the air conditioning pan was overflowing and it was dripping on the ceiling. Now, obviously, the big stuff I need to know about. So when I go over there, I go to the point where we have the attic access, and he's got a ladder there, and it's open, and there's a pan underneath. And he said to me, David, he's like, I really tried to fix this without calling you, and I really wanted not to bother you. And I thought in my head, they're back to a good relationship with me and these tenants, because it was a little strained for a while because we didn't quite know the roles that the lease set out, and I had to remind them. So I'm telling you, if you're constantly in your landlord now and you're having problems with somebody, I hate to say it, but it might be your fault. So just correct it and do it nice. So what do you think about that, Heather? Am I mean? Am I just being too mean?
I think you're smart, and I think you just have to tell it how it is, and you're lucky that you were able to correct that. And just wondering, what his previous experiences had been, and maybe he thought that he was going into this, new luxurious home with his, daily maintenance man. But just right. When you're even selecting a tenant before you even approve them, just going over and treating it like how you would the property almost. So you're looking at the property. Oh, is this going to be a good investment? What rent amount could I get? When you're looking at the person who's going to be renting it, are they responsible enough? Are they going to be someone that's a go-getter that can, be honest, pay their rent on time? So these are just some of the things that you need to consider, like the accounting of it. Are they going to be able to pay their rent? Maintenance, can they, take care of your property the way that they should as listed out in the lease? Or is it going to fail? Are you going to have to evict them? And I think that's every landlord's worst nightmare. No one wants to go through the eviction process. I know I don't. So I want to handle things, the right way the first time, so that I'm not, caught into a business relationship that's gone sour, because that's just a nightmare.
Okay, so let me set this video up real quick.
Okay.
Right? So in the whole Rent Perfect process, I actually only meet my applicants one time, and that is when I'm showing them the property. Now with this whole COVID deal, I've sat out front and I've let them go into the property by themselves, walk around, come back out, ask me questions out front, you know, kind of distanced, and then I go in and check all the windows, lock all the doors. But when it isn't the COVID, I go in with them and kind of, you know, talk a little bit about the property and what I like about it and what they could, you know, what they could do with it. And they'll always have questions on there. But the reality is I see so many of these products out there, and if you do it right, you know, these products are good. They're just not good for me. Because I, as a private investigator, I want to know who's renting from me. I want to know. Now, guys, let me tell you, I don't care about skin color, familial status. I don't care about all that stuff. I'm not asking about that stuff. I'm staying out of all those protected classes. But I want to get a feeling for how honest these people are when I ask them a question like, hey, where are you moving here from? And if they can't answer that right away and they hem and haw around, you know, I have to think that, okay, when I take this application, there's a chance I'm going to see that they didn't want me to know that they were coming from Tempe because I'm going to find an eviction in Tempe. And so I use the showing of the property really as my time, like the job interview, like the partner interview. Like, do I want to be partners with these guys? Once again, stay clear of the protected classes. Don't violate fair housing. I'm not telling you to do that. If they qualify with your criteria, they qualify with your criteria. But you can get a good idea of whether you feel good about them and they feel good about you. Now, everybody's going to be nice. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So there's certain things they're going to do that I don't want you to pay attention to. You know, a serial killer can be nice if you want something, right? So we're not going to judge them on how nice they are or anything like that. But we're going to ask them a lot of questions. So I have a theme that says, I need to know. And with that, Heather, roll this video.
Single young lady, some guy wants to take you out. He says, can I take you out? You have to ask yourself, what's your motive? These days, when people come to you and say, hey, how you doing? Are you all right? You're like trying to, what's the motive? Why are you talking to me? Because, you know, church folks can hide behind the church and not let you know what the real deal is. And that's why I say, single people, if you're dating somebody, you need to ask 1,000 questions during the dating process. You don't need to be sitting up there talking about, well, I go to church and I talk in tongues, and a big plus is I'm a member of World Change. Oh, praise the Lord, I done found my husband. You might have found the devil. Now, hold up a minute, girl. You need to ask some questions. Y'all need to sit down and go on a whole lot of dates. What's your name? Is that your real name? Do you have your daddy's name? When can I meet your daddy? Is your dad and mama together? How do you act when you get mad? Do you throw things? Do you cuss around? Do you beat up on people? I need to know, do you have a job? Where do you work at? How much money do you make? How long you been working there? Do you have a bank account? How is your credit? Can I see your credit score? Do you have a house? Or you live in an apartment? Do you pay for your gas in your car? Do you live with your mama and them? I need to understand what you're doing, what you like to eat. Do you plan on being fine like that all your life? Or you plan on getting big? How many children do you want to have? Will you get upset if we don't have no kids? You plan on having an inheritance? Do you have insurance? Can you pay for your funeral if you were to die today? You need to know who you're marrying. And don't you dare get married to somebody talking about, I've never seen him angry since I met him. It is not time to marry that person. You need to see how he looks. And you need to ask that woman, how you look without your makeup? Don't put none on tomorrow. I need to see. The hair you got on your head, is that yours or did you purchase it? And if you purchase it, is it paid for or are you in debt? I need to know. When you blink your eyes, are those your eyelashes or did you buy those from somewhere? I need to know. You smell good today, but what about tomorrow morning? I need to know. Do you believe in taking showers at night or in the morning? Do you believe in taking 3 days off and then take shower? How is your relationship with soap and water? I need to know. What's your motive? All that time I love him and I'm ready to get married to him. You don't even know him.
Okay, well, I know that's a little bit of an exaggeration of what I would do here as I interview my future business partners as I'm showing them the property. But you get the idea, you know. It just seems like nowadays every technology wants you to distance yourself from your tenants or your applicants, business partners, and I just think that sometimes we need to be a little bit old school, and we need to make sure that we have the right business partner. And I just can't say that enough. If you treat it like that, you'll make the process work where you meet. You know, you can ask your applicants how long you've been working at the job. You can ask them questions that you're normally they're gonna fill out on your application anyways. Why not have a live application kind of going back and forth as you're, you know, speaking to people who possibly want your property. So I also would recommend having a criteria sheet with you as you show your property. Hand them a criteria so they know exactly what you're looking for, and so you can stay consistent with, you know, I'm looking for credit from you know, 550 to 625 is conditional, 625 above is approved. Let them know what your criteria is. That'll keep you consistent, and they'll know what you're looking for. That's a time where I say, you know, we don't allow dogs and we don't allow smoking. And as much as I put that in my ads on Zillow or wherever I put my ads, and I say no smoking, no dogs, people constantly say, well, I've got a little dog. He's 5 pounds. Can he, you know, it was in the ad, but if I hand him another piece of paper that it's on my criteria sheet, that I'm not saying, hey, you know what, I'll let you have a dog, but the next guy that comes in, I'm going to know it. You need to stay consistent with this criteria. So make sure you have a criteria. If you need help with your criteria, call us. We'll show you how you can do your criteria in Rent Perfect, or just have a form on the side. So I'd also recommend that so people know, you know, if they qualify or not qualify.
I was just going to throw in there, I've talked to a lot of investors on the phone, a lot of new investors. Maybe someone just inherited a home, or maybe they just made their first purchase and they're so excited, but a lot of times they give me a call and they've already found, they think they've already found their tenant, but they just need to get this application filled out. It's like in the back of their mind, they know they need to go through this process. Or maybe sometimes I talk to someone and an HOA is requiring this and they're just so ready. Maybe they've even handed them the keys already. And I'm just like, whoa, 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 slow down. I know everything might be, you know, feeling good already, but when someone is trying to hide something, they're doing their best to perform exactly how you want them to, especially someone that's being currently evicted. I cannot stress that enough. Dave, you told me a story once about a guy who had come in. He, you know, the guy was on the street and he just wanted to, you know, get the guy inside. So he had already given him the keys. Well, we got the background check the next day and I believe he was a sex offender. So then you're in a really big mess there. So just slowing down, going through those interview processes, getting the proper screening done. And really, you just want to know, you know, you really do want to know, where are you currently living? You know, what was that situation like? Why are you moving? These are all important questions that can really help determine if someone's going to be a good business partner.
Now, Heather, you know, this might seem like this onboarding process is going to take a long time. After I show the property, I spend about 20 minutes onboarding an applicant to a business partner. So we have a system here that after we find the right person, we're going to make this completely easy. We're going to give you the right application, right? We're going to allow you to put in a custom lease. We're going to do the background, the credit. We're going to do rent pay, and we're going to go through this. But this is all designed so you can spend the least amount of time on your rentals, but do it the right way. I'm afraid of the people that want to spend the least amount of time with their properties and they don't do it the right way. So please don't misunderstand what we're saying. We're not saying that, hey, spend so much time and this takes effort. We've actually put this into a science that is going to help people do things quickly. You know, I kind of call myself a successful, lazy landlord because I don't want to spend time on stuff that I can solve with technology, but other things I can't solve with technology. So we've used technology where we need to use technology, and we're using that human investigator element where we need to use the human investigative element. But like I said, this process is simple, and you're going to see it here in a little bit. Seamless integration. It's fantastic. And so, you know, being a landlord, having a place for lease, and having someone who wants it is exciting. It solves my problem. It helps me pay my next month's mortgage. But, you know, I just don't rush it. Do not rush it. Go through the steps. Can't say that enough.
Exactly. Dave, so you're a private investigator. And when you're going through that process, I love hearing you go through these red flags to look for. And this is, you know, during that interview process when you're hearing from a tenant that is interested in your property. So you want to take some time to go through those?
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of time. Where are we at here? Let me check here. Okay, we got a little bit of time. Yeah, hit the first one up. Let's talk about it. Okay, so for you seasoned landlords on the call, you're going to shake your head. And for you new landlords or new investors that want to get into the long term, immediate move-ins is just not how we do it. We just don't have a guy show up with a U-Haul truck and say, I need to move in tonight. That does not happen. That should not happen. Very few instances that would ever be relevant. The reality is if my senses are right, the constable or sheriff is at their old place and just put a big orange sticker on the door and just took them through an eviction and kicked them out, and now they have nowhere else to go. They rode that eviction to the very, very end, and now they're looking for their next victim.
Yeah, what kind of person wakes up and doesn't know where they're going to be living that day?
Yeah.
You know, that's drama. So if you want the drama, then move them in. But if you don't want drama, if you want to, you know, enjoy being a landlord, then don't move them in right away. At least this could be a red flag.
So there is so much to do when you change from one residence to another, whether you buy a home or whether you rent a home. There is a lot of stuff to do. And most states will have something like a 30-day notice that you'll give your landlord saying, hey, I'm not going to be renewing in 30 days. It gives me 30 days to go find a new place. It gives you 30 days to start preparing to rent this property to somebody else. There is no state that I know of that says you have to give a one-day notice, you're out, and show up at your next property with a U-Haul truck. So big red flag. There is no reason that needs to happen. You would have to have a very, very compelling story that I would need to verify if you showed up and needed my place tonight. Chances are you wouldn't get my place tonight. My process takes a little bit longer than that. And so big red flag for me. All right, living with parents. Now, you're 18 years old. That makes sense. I have a 17-year-old now that's telling me the minute she turns 18, she wants out. She wants to go live on her own. And I love that. Get out of the nest. I don't want kids that live with me until they're 40. So I love that about her. But say you are 40 years old and living with your parents. Now, once again, we're investigators. We're not going to rope everybody into one deal here. We're going to ask questions. So I want to know why people are living with their parents. And there might be some good reasons. My parents are elderly. They needed my help. They're now going to an assisted living home, so we're going to sell the house. And now there can be some great reasons why you're 40 years old living with your parents. But many of the excuses that we see on our applications where I'm still living at home is they don't want to give you the prior address where they lived. They don't want you contacting that landlord. They don't want you looking in that county for eviction records. They want to act like they never lived there. So how can I get through the application? I put my parents' address. I say I live with mom and dad. You can go ahead and call them and ask them how I made my bed. I'm sure they're going to give you a good rental verification. So that is something that I look at hard on an application when I see the 40-year-old living at home with his parents versus the 18-year-old. Doesn't mean anything by itself. I just ask questions at that point to figure out what the real story is.
Yeah, these are really just be an investigator. The tenant is screening you when they're looking to move into your place. They want to know, how is this person? You know, are they going to be strict? Am I going to be able to get away with things? Am I going to be able to lie to them? Do I need to tell them where I'm currently living? So living with parents, there's a possibility that they're telling a lie and that they might be evicted somewhere else. So.
And I love that phone call I get that says, hey, are you a property management company or private owner? Right?
Yes.
And a lot of people just answer the question and don't even realize why they just got asked that question. I got asked that question, I know, because they think of a property management company follows all the rules, does it correctly. But if I can befriend a private, smaller owner, I probably can get away with them even doing a background check on me or them even doing a credit check on me if I can make a friend out of them and do that. So keep in mind, you made a great point, Heather, and I love it, is they are screening you long before you're screening them. They want to know what kind of landlord are you going to be and what can I get away with, for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. So asking about your screening, right? It's kind of the same thing I just talked about. Hey, do you do your background check? Does it go out of state? I've had someone ask me that before. Does it go out of state? Well, if you have no criminal history, you can go all the way around the world on me. You're not going to find anything. But if you're asking me if I go out of state, then guess what? There's a record that we're going to find out of state. And so if they start asking you questions about your screening process, a person who is great and is going to qualify is never going to ask about your screening process. They don't care. They're going to qualify. So just know if they start asking questions, just a red flag. I'm not saying you turn them away and say, no, I'm not renting to you, but just keep in mind what that means. Evasive. I talked about this a little bit earlier. You know, when I ask questions, can we just have a normal conversation? You know, the more information I get from someone, the more I'm going to catch them in lies, because they got to remember everything that they're telling me. And so, you know, if I ask them a question about, you know, like I said, where are you coming from? Where, you know, I've seriously had a person point north and say, oh, just from over there. From over there. I mean, is it a city? Is it a street name you're going to give me? I don't know what over there means. Once again, doesn't mean anything by itself, but just a red flag to say why are you being so evasive? And then overly satisfied. You know, it's so funny because as I started investing in my late 20s, and I had that person come into my property and they started nitpicking stuff. And they're like, well, there's a little chip on the corner of this countertop. Or, you know, I can see that you try to do a touch up right here and it doesn't look really good. And you know, and I try to give my properties pristine. I do. But some things aren't worth fixing. It's not worth replacing a whole countertop if there's a little tiny, you know, nudge on it. And those people used to bug me. And they were going to, and I thought, you know what, if they're going to be a pain, you know, moving in, they're going to be a pain as a business partner. But what I realized over the years in my experience is the person who cares about all that stuff at the very beginning usually takes care of your property because they care. They care about the condition of it. I found the person that was overly satisfied with anything, right, that maybe the carpet was coming up a little bit in a room or something that really you should have been concerned about, didn't even care. Or they, on the phone, they said something like, hey, do you have any other properties available? And I'm like, well, I've got a 3-bedroom. And they're like, well, we'll take it. I'm like, well, you were looking for a 4-bedroom and now you're okay sight unseen taking a 3-bedroom without even wanting to look at it. Those are just little things in my head that say, okay, these guys have kind of sized me up and they think they can get away with something. And they're just so overly satisfied that I need to see why they're overly satisfied. So big red flag.
Yeah, well-qualified applicants are going to go and they're going to get exactly what they want. And they're not going to have to put on a show or, you know, they're going to go out. If they want a 4-bedroom, they can qualify for a 4-bedroom and they're not worried about hiding anything. So maybe if they get with a small landlord, they think, oh, I'm going to be able to lie to them and take advantage of them. And that's a big red flag.
All right. I love this one. I love this one because as you give them the criteria sheet and you're showing them the property and they look at the criteria and it might say, you know, no felonies in the last 7 years or you know, we're going to consider felonies in the last 7 years at this property as we give you an individualized assessment, 5-year misdemeanor, whatever your criteria is. They're going to look at it, and then they're going to decide, well, wait a minute, I better tell my version of the story, because if I do go forward with this rental and they do find this, criminal record in my history, I want to have this in their mind before they hear from the screening company. So, for example, had a tenant that I'm showing, an applicant I'm showing a property to, and I kind of tell him my spiel. He says, well, listen, I got in a really crazy situation. It wasn't my fault, but I think I need to tell you about it right now. I was in an apartment, and there was a lot of turmoil going on out in front of the door, and I was hearing like a lot of noise. And I just opened up the door and I cracked it open to just make sure I was safe. And a hand came in my door, pulled me out, and threw me to the ground and arrested me for selling methamphetamine. And it wasn't even me. It was the guy across the way. And I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I just got caught up in it, but I had nothing to do with it. And when I hear those stories, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so now I'm going to wait for the criminal history. Obviously, always wait for the criminal history, but I'm going to wait to see now a court record, what they were charged for. And I'm going to come back to him and I'm going to say, hey, I appreciate the story and I appreciate that you might not have been involved. But when you said that you were guilty in this court hearing, that was the day that the jury and the judge were out. That was the day that everybody had the facts and that a decision was made. I can't play judge and jury right now. I don't have all the facts. I have your side of the story. And so my position here as a landlord isn't a judge and jury. My position as a landlord is to look at the facts. And when it says guilty, I have to assume that you were part of that. Now, if that's wrong, you need to go down to the court and file some motions to either get it expunged or reheard. But as far as this point, I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I need to be the judge and jury. I'm going to stick to my criteria. I'm going to treat everybody fairly. I'm going to do an individualized assessment. But if you start telling me stories about your previous criminal history, that's a big red flag for me. I'm going to be going through this with a possible applicant in the future when I get the background. So I just need to know that.
Yeah, the same thing can be applied to evictions, really, because I've heard the stories. And, in my early 20s, I remember hearing some people tell some stories about how terrible their landlord was. And they were just so justified in trashing the place, or they were so justified in just skipping out in the middle of the night. And it's like that pattern of behavior is what you're really looking for. How responsible are they? How do they treat other landlords? Because you're going to be the next victim.
No, I love that, because I was just going to say that. We don't have this in the slide, but when I listen to applicants tell me how bad their current landlord or previous landlord was, I know that I'm just the next landlord down the road that they're going to be bad-mouthing. I already know it, right? So they're already telling me, it's kind of like, hey, I had a really bad marriage, but I want to marry you. Well, wait a minute. We need to back up a little bit and see, we don't need to rush into this relationship. I need to see a little time go by. So that's kind of what it's like, is if they're bad-mouthing their prior. Now, there are bad landlords out there. There's bad everything, right? There are. But you're going to find that person who's kind of that victim, and, the landlord was out to get me, and I just found that you're going to be the next landlord out to get him in the future. So that's an additional red flag you brought up, Heather. Thanks for bringing that up for us. Here's the big one. They just try to be your friend, right? I've had people, I have a daughter. No, I have a daughter. Yeah, she plays soccer. Your daughter plays soccer. Hey, we should go to dinner sometime. We should. And they start wanting to be, I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a business partner. And this even goes towards my current tenants. Is I have a property that's about a quarter mile from me. And the lady started reaching out to my wife and saying, hey, we need to go to dinner and that would be fun. We're new in the area and we want to meet people and friends. And my wife said to me, hey, this couple wants to go out with us. And I said, honey, I have chosen my relationship with them, and it is not a friendship relationship. I'm sure they're good people, but I can't be their landlord and their friend at the same time, because the first time that the husband doesn't get a paycheck, someone gets sick, kid breaks their arm, they're running to me for help, and I don't want to be in that position. Now, that sounds callous, but I have picked my relationship as a landlord. My main goal, and this might even sound bad too, is I need money from them every month so I can pay my mortgage, right? I want good people in my property to pay me money. I don't want anything to get in the way, because if I don't get that money, there's a chance I can't pay my mortgage and I lose that investment. And I've worked too hard to buy that investment. So my style of managing is I pick my relationship, and that is a business partner relationship, not a friend relationship. And maybe that's just personal judgment here. But if you're going to be a landlord who wants to make sure that you're not the one always trying to solve other people's problems, don't open up that channel of friendship. It's their problem, and it's not mine. And I know that sounds callous, but it's true. If we solve everybody's problems out there in the world right now, we're not going to get very far in life. So sorry if I sound callous about that. Sorry if you hate me for that attitude. I'm just trying to make sure that you're a landlord who's going to get his rent every month.
Well, I get what you're saying, because I'm going to be a landlord soon. And, you have to ask yourself, why are you going to hold on to this property and rent it out? Is it to have a charity where, you can bring in people that can live for free? Or, and I'm not in a financial position to do that. I need them to pay me the rent. So I need to get someone that is going to be able to do that. And another thing about tries to be your friend. I mean, maybe they are just a friendly person, and maybe they wouldn't take advantage of you. Who knows? We're not going to, put them in necessarily in that category, but maybe they're trying to be your friend because they're trying to hide something from you. They, maybe they did leave their last place trashed. Maybe they have no intention. Maybe they just want to live with you for 1 month and then skip out to their real place that they want to live. Who knows? But maybe they're, trying to put something over your eyes by being a little too friendly.
So Heather, I've had, tenants over the years call and say, hey, my husband lost his job and I'm so sorry, but we can't get you the rent this month. And they try to make it my problem when they do that. I have a really good way of saying, hey, do you have a church you can go to? Do you have family you can go to? Because I tell you what, if I could, I would, but I've got a mortgage to pay. And if I don't pay that mortgage, we're both out. So I would love to help you, but I'm not in a position either. And I hope you could go to maybe a friend, a church, a family member, to get some assistance. And I make sure that they're not dumping their problem on me. Now it's my problem. I push it right back on them in a nice way and let them know this isn't my problem. This is your problem. You need to go figure it out.
That's really good advice. And another part is, sometimes stories aren't necessarily bad, because sometimes stories can tell you something about a potential renter. For example, maybe you see that they were evicted 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know. And I don't know what your criteria is. Everyone's different. But how did they tell that story? Were they playing the victim, or did they say, oh, I had this eviction and I had been in a bad situation, but I got through it. I found another job. I paid off this judgment, because there is a difference between, an open, unsatisfied judgment and a judgment that has been satisfied. Or maybe the landlord had to file the eviction, but they were able to get that rent to them in the end. And, you need to obviously be able to verify that, but it does say something that they realize that they're not necessarily a victim, that they can do what they can to try and make things right.
And we're going to hear a lot of those stories with COVID, right? With a lot of restaurant workers and people who had their job taken from them overnight at no fault of their own. Now, there are people that took advantage of this moratorium, but that doesn't mean everybody took advantage of it. And
Right.
now we're going to have to be the judges that decide, how it all worked out. I mean, the reality is what I'm going to be looking at is if you didn't pay your rent, but I noticed by your paycheck stubs that you kept your job the whole time, then I'm going to have to ask myself, were you just gaming the system and not paying your rent? You could have, or did you really lose your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you lose your job and go get unemployment with an extra $600 a week, and you decided to buy, something else and not pay your rent? The reality is for June and July, there were so many programs out there to help people in unemployment that people still should have been able to pay their rent if they would have been smart with their money. Now, I'm not saying that's on everybody, but that's something that I'm going to be looking at, because the fair housing requires you to do an individual assessment of each person, okay? So you have to listen to these stories. You have to take this into consideration. Now, you need to get proof they have to prove it. They just can't tell you a story and you have to believe it. But you can ask for proof of that story. Okay, get me your paycheck stubs, get me your unemployment checks, you're allowed to ask for that. And so, we do need to treat everybody individually, unfortunately. We've always learned fair housing is treat everybody the same. Now it's have the same criteria for everybody, but if you have an eviction or criminal history, you have to do an individual assessment.
Yeah.
And let me talk about, real quick before we jump on the next thing, let me talk about an individual assessment and why fair housing wants us to do that. You could have somebody who's 18 years old. He was 17 dating a 16-year-old. He turns 18, now he's dating a 16-year-old. The mother doesn't like him, turns him in as a sexual predator, but they've been boyfriend and girlfriend for, a couple years. And we've had it now where that person's been on a sex offender list for 20 years, but have been married to the girl and has, 4 kids with them. And so you have to say, even though this person's on the sex offender list, I can verify that there's a marriage certificate. I can verify that him and her live at the same address. I can verify that they have kids. I can verify this was so long ago, and I can verify that they were 18 and 16 when this happened. So very well, once I do an individual assessment, I can say this guy is really not a sexual predator. He just got caught up in some issues when he was 18 and 16. Now, that's not a usual case, but I'm telling you why fair housing came out and said you need to do an individual assessment to see if kind of the system roped them in and put them somewhere and they're really not a threat to you. So, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody on the sex offender registry was 18 and 16 years old. I'm just telling you that's how fair housing got to requiring us to do an individual assessment on everybody.
Yeah, and as we're going through these red flags, that's a really good point to bring up about the individual assessments. And if you're not familiar with the individual assessments that fair housing is wanting you to do for criminal records and things like that, we do have a podcast episode on that I can share at the end of this, but that's really important to bring up. As you want to be an investigator and approve the right tenants, you still need to go by, of course, David already mentioned, fair practices, so we can share that podcast episode a little later on.
Awesome. So this is the point of my presentation where I ask you if you're going to change anything in your process and you're still using paper applications, get rid of paper applications. Online electronic applications are so much easier. When you have your online application in the Rent Perfect system, it is with you everywhere you go because it's in your phone. You don't have to worry about what computer is that Word document on, what file is that in at my house or my office. You don't have to worry about legibility. Is the L and I. When we do backgrounds, we need to know the exact spelling of a name. We need to know the exact date of birth. If you put in the wrong date of birth or the wrong spelling of the name, chances are you're going to get back bad information. You're going to get back a no record found. And a lot of people know this, and so they misspell their name. They change their middle name to their first name. They do a lot of things to try to trick the system. Now, we have a process where we make sure we get the social that matches the name, and we know their real identity, and we also grab their driver's license and what's the name on the driver's license. But my point is on a paper application, you can leave things blank. You can have illegible writing, and so you can sign for other people and you get something back, either a scan or by fax, and it just has a signature on it. You don't know who signed it. And if the wrong person signed it, they can come back and say, you didn't have the right to pull my credit. That wasn't my signature. So I'm telling you right now, as a landlord, one of the greatest moves I ever made is I went to an electronic application online. It's editable. It's easy to change. You always have it. And we don't want people leaving things blank on an application. And an electronic application won't let you go to the next page until you put in something. If I ask you a question, have you ever been convicted of a drug within the last 7 years? And I want to know yes or no, and what was it? A lot of them will love to leave that blank because they don't want to lie to you, but they also don't want to tell you the truth. An electronic application would say you have to put something down there. So if you say no to move on to the next screen and I find some criminal history on you, you've lied on your application, and that's one more thing I can use to say I'm not renting to you. So I know it says leaves blanks on an application, but if you use an electronic application, you solve that problem.
Yeah. Well, paper applications certainly open up a big can of worms that you just don't want to deal with if you're trying to have a good, smooth, easygoing, or what David calls being a successful, lazy landlord, because a paper application is just going to make so much more work for you, and it's going to open up so many doors of possible liability on your part. And
Heather,
so, yeah.
think of this, Heather. I used to get a paper application, and I would send it to somebody, and then they'd give it back to me, and I'd print it out, and I'd put it in a manila file. And maybe I was at work, and then it'd sit on my seat in my car as I drove home. And then as I drove home, maybe I set it on the counter and got some dinner. And I've got someone's social and personal information floating around on this piece of paper that could disappear anytime. Also, when I get done purging my files 5 years down the road or whenever I do it, I'm throwing that in the garbage, and it's ending up out at the landfill, and someone's social's on it. And so a paper application floating around, is kind of taboo in this day and age. We need to be secure with these because they have people's personal information that could cause them, identity theft and a lot of grief. So I love that. Also, that electronic application keeps everybody's, information safe and secure behind a firewall. Now, I know, a lot of places get hacked, and I know people out there are hacking, but believe me, it's a lot safer than it is sitting on the front of my car seat or somewhere.
Your
right?
info is way safer in the electronic. Yeah, there are hackers, but there is way bigger chance that a paper application is going to be compromised. And they're so difficult to read, because I've been, around for a while helping with rentals, and I've helped, in previous years where people were faxing things, and just trying to read the information on there is just a pain in itself.
Right.
Anyway, moving on.
All right, impression with dress or money. Okay, so kind of the same thing. We're getting the same idea. If they pull up in a Mercedes and they have a big wad of cash and, they're ready to take the place right now, we just need to slow down and not rush to judgment. I mean, Heather, who do we see dresses really nice and has a ton of money?
Well, when I used to go and try and rent places, I would usually be coming from work. I'm kind of, stressed out a little bit because maybe I was running a little late. I'm not, busy putting myself together, trying to flaunt my money around because my credit score is going to get me there. I've never been evicted. I know I qualify. So.
But if I'm a drug dealer and I pull up in my Mercedes and I have a big old wad of cash I flip out of my wallet and show you how much money I'm making, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah,
right?
You got to look at the context for sure.
Yeah, I'd rather have the guy who shows up in his work boots and just got off work and is a little tired. And
what's the neighborhood? What's appropriate?
Right.
Once again, just could be a red flag.
All right, let's move on for time.
Oh.
All right, let's just move on. Those are just more of kind of the same style of thing. Heather, I think that this would be a great time just to take questions.
Do we have any questions?
Candace, do you have any questions or open it up a little bit?
No, I can't even see.
Yeah, I do. Let's see.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment, if that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, you can stop sharing.
Yeah. Oh, my thing is falling.
Your camera's tilted, yeah. I sent you a chat about it like 20 minutes ago.
See. Sorry, everyone. You can see my Rent Perfect logo shirt.
Amy says, I'm wondering if David thinks most landlords screen adequately, and if not, why not?
I do not think it. I see it all the time. If you're coming to trainings and you're part of REIAs, I would say yes. But a lot of people get into this business because they inherited mom and dad's home. They maybe passed on. They almost become a landlord by default. They absolutely don't know anything about properly renting. So I really think that there's no school to become a landlord. There's no, you might watch some YouTube videos, but I think you really learn how to do it correctly when you come to a REIA and you really search for it. And I will tell you that most people I talk to don't even know what REIAs are. They don't even know that it's out there. They go to Staples, or their Office Max to get an application, which is absolutely covers them on nothing. And they're just flying by the seat of their pants. And the way they learn is they get burned, right? They make a mistake that costs them money.
That's who I talk to.
Yeah, if they can survive the mistake, they can keep going. Sometimes those mistakes, are too big. And so I think as landlords, we need to reach out to everybody we know and just train them and teach them what we know, because here's the reality. For us that are educated, we're going to push all the applicants we don't want out into our society of people who aren't as educated as us, because these people are going to try and fill out applications until they get a roof over their head because they have to. So they're just going to be searching and searching and searching for a roof over their head. So eventually they're going to find it, but they're not going to find it with an educated REIA member. And so I really feel like most of the calls we get during the day is just full on education.
Yeah, and then I just feel that if you're putting the effort, you're joining a REIA, you're going to meetings, and you're putting in that work and making that effort, and we're going to show you that it doesn't even really have to be hard, really. It sounds like it could be really intimidating, but we have a system, or whatever system you use, you can try and make it easier. But if you're putting in that effort, then you don't want to be the one that's going to get taken advantage of.
I think the key is here is
You
that
can be successful. Yeah,
I think the key is here that you're educated, and we'll let everybody else make the mistakes.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Brittany asked, do you recommend including cable or utilities in the rent?
Well, I just think that's a preference. I would, first of all, I want to say I'm not an attorney, and I'm not going to give you any kind of legal advice. North Carolina has certain things, of whether it's how much a deposit you can take and what you can do, how you treat utilities, if you have to put things in special accounts. So that's really a question that I would probably ask a seasoned landlord at a REIA and get that information from them on how you guys handle it out there. For me personally, I have cable inside my rent on some of my properties. And it works out fine, but they have to pay the full rent. So it doesn't bother me at all. I don't like to chase utilities on the side. I don't like to say, hey, your rent's $1,000, but you're going to owe me $50 on a separate check on the 12th of the month. I just want to get a one-time check, put it all in there, get it paid. It makes it easier on me. But that's a personal preference. I'm not going to tell you, yes, you should, no, you shouldn't. That's just how I handle it.
Okay. Dan, I've got another question. Did I hear correctly that the only way to find out if someone had an eviction is from searching court records?
Yes, that is. And I would say probably going directly to the court source. There are a lot of companies out there that buy data and put it into databases, and we kind of lose that integrity. It's like making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So we always recommend going directly to the courts where people have lived. That's how Rent Perfect does it. If I have someone that comes through and they've lived in North Carolina their whole life, I'm not checking the evictions in courts in Alaska and in Washington. I am diving deep into Carolina, and I'm making sure that they don't have an eviction there. Now, let me tell you something about eviction records. Eviction records are the hardest records to find, because when you file an eviction, you don't put the date of birth, you don't put the social security number. So if you're evicting a John Smith, right, then how does an investigator or a database company come in and know that that's the right John Smith that's in front of you right now? And so we have to triangulate and cross-reference addresses and make sure that John Smith that's in front of you lived at that address, and there's a John Smith at that address about the same time period you live there that got evicted. And then as an investigator, we can put those two together and say, we believe this John Smith is the John Smith that is evicted. And so eviction records are my favorite records to search as far as being a landlord, because how they took care of the last home they're in is how they're going to take care of my home, is the way I look at it. And so they're so important, and yet they're so hard to find. And even some courts even limit us at searching civil records altogether. They do not make those available to us. And so there are some places deep into Tennessee that we can't even get to the eviction record because the court prevents us from doing that. Carolina records are good. That's the good news about Carolina records are good for us. And so you're going to get good reports coming to us out of Carolinas.
Yeah, I used to be an investigator here, and it was kind of fun to search for some evictions. But companies that are giving these instant eviction searches, I just wonder, because, and I've seen some of them, I've had clients send me certain reports, and they're giving these long lists of this might be your applicant. And it's scary because
Yeah.
they're not an investigator. They don't know what to look through.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen that, you know what I'm talking about. But that's just asking for trouble.
You're not hiring your screening company to tell you maybes. You're not hiring us to tell you maybes. You're hiring us to tell you this is the guy, right? And that's what we do at Rent Perfect. Honestly, if we can't tell that that's the eviction that is your guy in front of you, we won't report it. Even if it ends up being that was the guy, but we couldn't triangulate it, we couldn't cross-reference it, we can't report it. Because what does that do for the landlord and for us? If we report a wrong eviction on the wrong person, how would you feel if you were applying somewhere and we said you had an eviction when you really didn't, right? So just know that eviction records are very, very tricky. No one will tell you that. They all want to talk about we have an eviction database and we have this, and it is a very difficult record to search. I'm proud to say if it's there and we can get to it, we will find it and we will report it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another question asking, what's the cost for the credit check by the potential tenant?
So $35 applicant pays, free to the landlord. If they gave you an application fee and a check and you really want to pay it, we have a way that you can turn around and set a setting and have you pay for it. But this is a good time to tell you our concept at Rent Perfect. Our concept at Rent Perfect isn't that I'm a landlord and I'm doing a background check on you. Our concept is this. Your applicant is going to do a background check on themselves. They're going to order their own credit check. They're going to order their own criminal check. They're going to provide the data to us. They're going to pay for it. And then if everything looks good for them, they're going to share it with you. So as a landlord, they could never come back and say, hey, you ran my background check without my permission. I didn't run anything. You're the one who shared it with me. So that takes out all kinds of regulations when people run their own reports through us. And we verify that they're authenticated copies that are coming to you. They can't finagle them. They are direct copies from us. And it changes everything. And it allows us, so I would make your applicants pay the application fee directly to Rent Perfect. Then if there was ever a question, I didn't pay for it. I didn't order it. I didn't put it into the system. You did all that and you shared it with me. Mm-hmm. It saves it saves a lot, I promise.
And to add to the credit question, so they're ordering their own credit report. It's a soft pull because they're ordering their own credit report, and it's not going to affect their score, and they get copies of their reports. So a lot of applicants really like that. I actually speak to applicants on the phone too because we're the support for applications. Our whole philosophy is the landlord does very little, and the applicant and Rent Perfect do most of the work. So we're the support for applicants. They like the setup. At Rent Perfect is kind of, the trust built between the two of them. Okay, we're using this, reputable company with this website, and I'm going to order my own credit and get a copy of the report. So that's kind of cool for them.
So when we do the criminal and eviction, it's the same. They get a copy of their credit, their criminal, their evictions. They know exactly what happened. So if we're reporting the wrong thing, they can call us and say, hey, wait, guys, I've never been here. I've never had this. Or it's identity theft. Someone uses my ID. And a lot of those phone calls, like Heather said, are coming to Rent Perfect, not to you. And we're taking care of those internally. So we're saving you a ton of time on any kind of questions about criminal credit or eviction records.
Awesome. All right. I've got, let's see. Frank says, how long does the investigation take? What's the cost to the applicant versus what's the cost to the landlord?
So they're both $35, whether you pay for it or the applicant pays for it.
So but total. That's total.
That's total. 4 to 6 hours, business hours. We are in Arizona, so we are on Mountain Time. Our investigators, work from 9 to 5, work on Saturdays, pulling records and doing stuff. But a lot of times if the courts aren't open, we can't call the courts to confirm certain records. So 4 to 6 business hours, you can look at that as a day or however you look at 4 to 6 hours. But once again, going back to the slide, who needs to move in tonight? Who has a U-Haul truck saying, I need it tonight? It's not going to take a long time. It's going to take one day, but it is well worth it because we are going to climb all over the areas where they've lived and worked. So
that's awesome. Ariel says, in what states do you provide this service for Rent Perfect?
All 50.
It's awesome. I just wanted to hear you say it. I knew it.
You have to, right? Because you're not going to hire me to say, hey, just do a background check in this county. You want to know, did they move here from California? Did they move here from Chicago? Were they trouble up there? We're doing a nationwide search. But once again, we're taking an investigator approach. So I'm not spending a lot of my resources in Washington if they've never even lived in Washington. If they're from Chicago, I'm going to Chicago. If they're from Phoenix, I'm diving deep into Phoenix. And we have tools as investigators that you guys would be, well, you see a little bit of it with I-Corps. When you guys go through the I-Corps program and you see how powerful data is, and you can pull up neighbors, and you get a sense of the data that we have access to, and we have even access to more than that. And I-Corps by itself is scary, how much data you can get out of I-Corps if you're familiar with that. So we have a lot of those tools back here too. We can tell you who your neighbors were, who they, their kids, who they're married to, who their brothers are. I mean, we could lay out this whole country. If you don't think your data is out there, it is scary what is out there on each of you.
Let's see. This one says, David, should I get my rental application from my local REIA or should I get an attorney?
Well, we have rental applications that are already in the Rent Perfect system that have been approved by attorneys. The neat thing about our applications are they're all customizable. You could take your local REIA application, you could take your attorney application, and you could add all the questions you want into our electronic. So I would rather you have an attorney sign off on your lease than I think they need to sign off on your application. The really only thing an application can get you in trouble is if you're asking questions about protected classes. How many, are you a family? Just all kinds of questions that you don't realize just kind of encroach on those sensitive areas. Also, criminal history, they don't want any questions that say ever on it, because remember, we have to do that in that individual assessment. So they don't want to say, have you ever committed a crime ever? Fair housing is going to get you on that. So fair housing wants you to stay within 7 years. I don't agree with that, but I'm also don't want to be the test case that's going to fight a case in court over it either. We usually, when we go back 7 years, we usually can tell somebody's responsibility with just searching 7 years. So make sure you don't have any questions about criminal history ever on your application. So that would look like a question that said, have you ever committed a crime? You can't have that kind of question. But we have these questions already in our application that our attorneys have already written down to the individual word. So come take advantage that we've spent the money on that, and we'll save you a little money, taking that application to your attorney. But ultimately, if you want the safety of your attorney, I recommend you go to your attorney anytime you feel you need to.
That's awesome. Let's see. Ms. Brooks says, wow, that's a lot. Why have you decided to landlord yourself and not go through a property management company?
Because I can. So I'm cheap. I'm so sorry. I'm cheap. I don't want to give 10% away of my rent when I have a system that almost is my electronic property manager for me. Now, if I had properties in Carolina and I'm looking at some of your properties and some of the pricing, and I'm like, maybe I need to start sending some of my money out to Carolina to buy some property, because we're, the properties you showed us there are $300,000-$400,000.
I know, my jaw was a little drop.
Yeah.
Because I'm new to this. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's good.
So for me, I would use a property management out there. I would control the screening. I would approve the people knowing what I know. But the reason that I don't is because I don't have to, and there's no reason for me to. My system collects the rent for me every month. The new thing we're launching at the end of this year, I didn't really want to talk too much about it, take up the time, is we're putting a whole work order process that goes to your Metrolina approved vendors, and it'll team up you, your tenant, and your vendor all together. And we have this really cool thing in our minds that we're going to develop, that even when I get a work order in, I'm going to push a few buttons. I'm going to be in control. I'm going to approve the jobs. I'm going to make sure I approve the money going out of my pocket. But I'm going to make it so simple on me. And if you notice, Heather said something earlier. We have built this system so everybody else does the work. we just get the benefits, right? So if the applicant is so excited about moving into my property and I'm going to hand them a paper application, heck, why not have them fill out an online application? And once they push enter, it goes and pulls their credit and their criminal, and they share it with us. And then when we find the right tenant, we push a few buttons and a lease goes to them and they read the lease and they sign online. And then when we set up rent pay, we have our bank account and their bank account, and we shoot rent from their bank account to our bank account. I spend very little time on 14 properties, very little time of my day on those, but I feel confident that I do it right. So why would I need a property manager? And if there's property managers on the line, you're great, you're fantastic. We love you. You actually make us more money because when you use a property manager, they keep your rents to market value. Sometimes I see landlords get a little lazy. Rent's $1,000, my lease renews. Hey, I'll keep it at $1,000. I really don't want to upset anybody. And I find that property managers, they make you money because they keep your rents up at market, where a lot of other individual landlords get a little bit lazy with that. So I do love property managers, don't get me wrong. I just personally don't need one.
All right, and then Amy's got a question here. It says, and then also Doug's got one. To avoid being accused of discrimination, how would you handle it technically if someone meets all your qualifications, but you just have a bad gut instinct about them?
So that's a fantastic question. And we've really, fair housing has put us in a box. In the old days, we used to just put in who we wanted to put in. And now you have to have that criteria sheet. And if they qualify on the criteria sheet, then you need to rent to them. But here's the key. If we're doing the proper deep eviction dive, if we're calling the past landlord, right? If we're doing all the steps we need to do, then we're going to figure out why you're feeling so weird about this person. We're going to find out the past landlord says, no, they didn't pay their rent, or they were always late, right? Then if we can use that information and say, hey, I'm sorry, we're going to give you what they call an adverse action. I'm not going to rent to you because your previous residential verification didn't come to our satisfaction. There are ways out of it. But if you do the full background, past landlord says they're fantastic, credit's great, no criminal history, don't smoke, no dog, I'm sorry, we have been roped in with this fair housing. You probably need to rent to them.
Well, and maybe you just don't like them, but maybe they will pay their rent. Maybe they're not going to give you a hard time, you know? But usually when you're looking at the application as a whole, almost always you'll find something. They've lied on their application. I could tell you so many stories. One time we finally discovered that a guy was posing as his brother with his brother's information. So it wasn't even him. Like once, and this was before, you know, they hadn't gotten ID, but once they got the ID, they're like, oh, you look great on paper, but this isn't you. This is all of your brother's information, and it's not even who you are. So just being careful and being an investigator, you'll usually find something.
Yeah. I would just say dig a little deeper. Just dig a little deeper. You are a professional at reading people. I'm a firm believer that human beings are professionals at reading people. And if you're getting a vibe about something, just dig a little bit deeper. You'll probably find it.
Awesome. Hey, Doug, you had a question for David as well. What was that one?
Well, I wanted to back up. David told a story earlier about, I believe the lady's name was Kelly. I don't know. I may have it wrong.
Nikki.
But she was.
Nikki.
What was that? Nikki. Long-term renter.
Yes.
Somebody that was very successful. You had a good experience with, and then they got married and had a blended family and wanted to move to another property. Dave, would you recommend, or is it even legal to, can you do another credit check now that you've got a different person involved?
I absolutely can, because now I will be qualifying them together for a bigger asset, a different home. I don't have to take anything from the 3-bedroom. Now, I'm not going to have to call the past landlord because that's me, obviously, right? But I would take the husband absolutely. And in this case, the husband wasn't great. He wasn't bad, but I had such a history with her and her credit and everything that I decided to take the chance. And as I told you, I just need to make a few tweaks in the relationship. And I'm on 10 years with these guys now. So 5 years in the 3-bedroom, now 5 years in the 4-bedroom. In another 5 years, Doug, they've paid for half of my house, right? I love them. I love them. Keep renting,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So,
Well, my point is the dynamics of the relationship change a lot of times.
yeah. If that relationship, it had nothing to do with him qualifying for the second house, but if that relationship would have continued to be adversarial, I probably would have just waited for the first lease, and I would have given the 30-day notice, and I would have said, we're just not going to continue. Because I don't know how you guys are out there, but we're such in a hot market that you could fill your place up with good people. There's no reason to mess with people that are just giving you a hard time. Not in this economy. I guess if the economy was different, I'd put up with some of it just because I knew that unit would be sitting empty for a while. So we're lucky right now. And I don't know how that is for you guys there, but we're pretty hot right now.
I've got let's see. Sandy's asking, can you go over what's provided in the background, credit, criminal, eviction report, and do you do landlord and employment verifications as well? Call, review, pay stubs, that type of thing. Just what's all included with what you guys give.
Okay, so as the applicant comes
Hey, Dave,
through,
sorry to interrupt you. Is it okay if while you're answering that, I just give a glance into the portal because it kind of relates to like maybe
we'll answer a little bit of the question for what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to just keep talking and I'll share my screen? Okay.
Yeah. So obviously they fill out online applications. You get a full application with all their information. We have them upload a copy of their ID and a paycheck stub that will go ahead and support the application, so you can see that they're at least giving you some proof of employment. From there, we give you a full credit bureau with a score. So if you're looking at the screen right now, you can see Elvis Presley down here has an 811 score right there. You would get that immediately as soon as they finish and share it with you. You also would get an address history. If you look down in these circles, it looks like a flower under where her icon is. You get an address history, and that shows you every place where we've shown they have lived. And so if on the application they missed one of those addresses that should have been there, we can see from our resources that they did have another address in there. And you're always able to ask about anything on the background. So why am I seeing you lived at 1225 First Street and it wasn't on your application? What is that? And they can respond and tell you, oh, that's my parents' home, or that's, so we give you an address history so you can just double check your application to make sure they're not lying on your application. From there, you get the snapshot, which is this orange one at the bottom, and that's an instant criminal. We don't live by it. We don't believe it. It is just a tool that if we find a criminal history on an instant database somewhere, that we let you know that this is possible. In the 4 to 6 hours, one of the many things our investigators are doing, are they're looking over that snapshot to see, is this the person that's applied? Can we report this record? We'll go right to the courts, verify the record, and then we'll also go to those courts to look for additional records. So I love it because I get an instant credit report that gives me that score. I get an instant criminal just to see what's coming. We're not gonna go ahead and rent off of this report yet. I get an address history to see if they lied to me on the application. And then really I'm waiting for that final criminal report that's gonna have your eviction and your criminal data on it. And then I'm going to make a final decision once I get that report in from the investigator in 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, so this one says criminal report, but that's just because we really want people to click there. It's actually a lot more than just a criminal report, but just in some kind of experimenting with how we, get this information to our landlords. There's a lot more than just criminal reports on there. And we also include the judgments and liens that are no longer on credit reports as well, I will note.
Perfect, thank you.
That's awesome. That's a lot of info.
Yeah, you get a lot of info. The address history report is so cool. And I mean, we're private investigators, so we get this report. It's based on the social. It's going to give names they've gone by. You can see, like David said, the list of addresses. And it's similar. Like when I got my first mortgage, they want to verify what certain addresses are. So, I'll have to prove, I lived with my sister for a month one summer when just kind of for fun. She was, young as well. And so the address history report's a great tool. It's what we use to help us with a lot of our investigations. And that can help you really determine where they've been living. It's not a rental verification, but it is very helpful.
What I love about it too is it gives us alias names. And so, Heather, when you first started working here, you were Heather Larson before you got married and became Heather Johnson, right? And
Right.
If you have a criminal record under Heather Larson or an eviction under Heather Larson, I need to know that because, we always think as aliases names as someone's out there using different names and we catch those guys. But a lot of times females have name changes, and we have to know that when I go search for backgrounds, I'm searching multiple names and not just the name that they gave me.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of people have gone by different names, and that's included in our investigation. Please just know that if you are using another screening company, just be aware that the name that you put into that system to order a report, that's all you're going to get. They're not searching aliases. So you need to be careful that you know those aliases, especially for evictions and criminal records.
I'm glad you guys went into that because Wanda had a question about that very thing, was about being able to find the owner of a property that may have gotten married and changed her name. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Wendell's asking, do you guys, do you rent to unmarried couples?
Boy, so now you're getting into familial status, and I would stay completely away from whether they're officially married or not married. I just wouldn't even go there right now. So
Just see if they qualify.
I rent to people who qualify, whether they're married or not. Doesn't concern me.
Yeah, look at their credit scores. You want to just see how responsible are they, like what's the big picture? Look at everything as a whole. Don't just look at an eviction report. Don't just look at the application. Look at everything. See if their stories add up. Where are they working? That kind of thing that's going to help determine if they're going to, one, pay their rent, and two, if they're going to be responsible or if they're going to be a nightmare, are they going to trash your place? So.
Right.
So I saw a comment that said in North Carolina, we don't have to. And we don't have to do what?
Yeah, I don't know what that's in reference to. I just saw that pop in.
Okay.
While we're waiting on a little bit more explanation on that comment, there's Brittany here said that she sees rent pay. Can tenants pay their rent on the site?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do us a really fast demo, Heather. Like, no, don't take a long time, but just kind of take us through how we would go and go all the way through to rent pay real fast.
Okay. Before I do that, and I'll be very quick, I don't want to take up too much of your time. The rent pay is a standalone product as well. So you don't necessarily have to send an invite, and for example, for current tenants. So if you have current tenants living in your property, you probably don't want to have them do a whole online application and screening. So you can use the rent pay product by itself, but everything else is kind of built into a process. And it all starts with when you send the invite. So you'll be, say you're out to lunch, you're doing your thing, you're probably a busy professional. I know David is, he's a little modest, but all you have to do is log in on your phone, say you got the text message or you got the word that they want to rent it, and you just send them a simple invite. That's all you do on your part. You enter in their name and email. You can include a mobile number if you want them to get a text. You select who's going to pay the fee, and then you hit send, and that's it. So it's really simple on your phone. They're going to get an email or a text saying that you've invited them to apply, so you'll just want to give them a heads up. They're going to fill out the online application, and you can kind of check on the status, maybe if they're in progress with their application. So here, and then once they complete the application, you're going to get their credit. Basically, every report here, except for the investigative report, you're going to get these all instantly. The investigation is what takes a little bit of extra time, but it's worth the wait. And then from there,
Heather, let me stop you real quick, because what I love about this is, see Bruce Wayne, his application is in progress. And as he's filling out his application, I can see if he's done with his personal info, then I can see if he's done with his income, and I can see where in the application he is. And why is that important? Because when I send out an invite to apply at my property, I want to know how excited they are. Are they sitting down and filling the application out right away, or are they going to wait a day or two? Are they shopping me? Do they have 3 or 4 places they're looking at? I love to see when I send an application out that they get started on it and start working on it right away. That tells me they're really excited about it. And I probably have somebody, you know, who's going to go ahead and complete the eviction, and I possibly have my next business partner.
Mm-hmm. Having them pay the fee helps with that as well, because it really does weed out people that aren't so serious, or I mean, maybe they don't qualify, but charging them that fee and having them pay that fee is going to invest them in your property. They're a lot less likely to move on somewhere else if they've already put a little bit of money into yours. And it can help determine if they can afford your property. I mean, if they can't afford a $35 fee, they probably can't afford your deposit or your rent. So if they're struggling there, that's a red flag as well.
Heather, we got 4 minutes. Let's move through.
All right, well, that's how you get them in the system. From there, you can choose if you want to continue and create a lease. We have a custom lease creator, and I have used that a lot. So I can help you get your lease template in our system, and then your template is saved, and so that makes it really easy to prepare a lease when you are ready. So you can prepare an online lease. I'm not going to click into it because we are limited on time, but it just walks you through step by step, and it makes it really easy. I keep using the word easy, but I can't emphasize enough how little effort it takes to go through that process, generate the document, you send it for a signature, and then we store the lease for you and the tenant. So they can log into their account, view it. You can view yours. We have an online move-in inspection process. So once again, you're in control of initiating that move-in. It's an electronic inspection where it walks them through each room, you know, the kitchen, living room, so they can document if there's anything they want to report, just like the rental car walkthrough. I'm sure you have a move-in process. Maybe you do, but it's a pain to have it on paper, and then it's a pain to keep track of the pictures, and then finding that a year or 2 or maybe even 5 years later to compare it to the condition when they move out. So this process makes that really easy for moving in and moving out. And then getting to the rent pay. So yeah, there's one more application to get your bank account set up, and then from there, I am going to show you this screen really quick. So the landlord's going to be able to set up a payment schedule for monthly payments. You know, what's the rent? When is it due? What are my late fees? You can set up a one-time payment for any reason. So you got here, rent, move-in, miscellaneous. These are just the most common is rent and move-in payments. When is it due? What are the fees? We send payment reminders. We calculate and charge late fees for you. So it really just simplifies that and makes it convenient for.
And we don't allow them to pay partials. They have to pay it all, or it doesn't allow them to pay, which is a big deal for us. And then also it sends them late notices 2 times a day. If they're late on their rent, they're going to kind of, you know, just be reminded, hey, you need to get this taken care of. And so I love our rent pay system. It makes it so easy on me. I used to, you know, do they mail it to me? Do I go to their house? Do they come to my house? They drop it off at my work? Do I send them down to the bank and have them put it into my account directly? And it just, every one of those processes just took too much of my time. Now I just sit back, I get an email, rent's on its way, they pay it, I get it 3 days later, and it tracks the whole way through until it gets into my bank account. And it's just such an easier way to deal with collecting rent, and I love it.
Yeah, so this is just a brief overview of the system. If anyone is interested, I would be happy to do more in-depth with any of these features. But yeah, it's a great system. We have an app. It's very mobile friendly, especially once you get your application set up, your lease set up. Then it's really just the landlord just clicking a few buttons each time you need to do one of these processes.
So guys, how do we get them, what do we need to tell everybody, or how do we get them information? I know that our members are, I know our members, our REIA members are at a advantage. They have a discount that is given to them with your service. Doug, how do we get everybody into this?
So we have a special link they can use to create an account. Is everyone here a member tonight? I mean, no.
Not everybody here is a member. So we've got members and non-members on the call tonight.
Okay, well, members can sign up for just, and this isn't a joke, 95 cents. It's a one-time fee to get your account. After that, your tenant pays the fee, the $35 fee. That gets you the application, all of the screening reports, and then from there you can choose if you want to generate an online lease, if you want to use the move-in inspection process, if you want to use rent pay, that's free for the landlord as well. There is a processing fee for the tenant. We have renter's insurance discounts for tenants. So we have all these tools to help you with your property. They're mobile friendly, and it's just 95 cents for your members. You tell me how you'd want to go about doing that.
Doug, what do you think? Should we have the interested members send me an email and I can send them the link out to set up with their 95-cent account?
Yeah, we can do that. We can send the link out to our entire membership.
Okay.
Would be one way to do it with kind of a follow up to this. It's really a simple one-page application. I've got it up on another screen right here. You just create your own account, put your information in, your credit card, and they're going to ding you for 95 cents. So it's really, you know, since there's a minimum $2.75 charge, it's costing Dave money for you to sign up. So,
No, I totally agree. And people ask me why 95 cents? Because because I'm sharing stuff with landlords, I got to make sure you are who you say you are. I'm not going to pull your credit.
exactly.
I'm not going to do a full background check on you, but I got to make sure if you say you're Doug Shields, I got to make sure I'm going to be sharing some very sensitive information with you, and I got to know who I'm sharing information with. So we do a little identity check, and like you say, I lose money with REIA members, but hopefully we make it up as you run your tenants through our system. So thanks, Doug. I appreciate that.
All right, so let's do that then. Guys, if you're already a member of Metrolina REIA, make sure that I want to make sure I get you handled first, just in the event it takes me a little bit to get the link out to the rest of the members. So send me an email, exec@metrolinaria.com, and I'll get the link for your 95-cent joining thing with Rent Perfect out to you right away. And then, like Doug said, we'll put it out to our entire membership after as well. And then also there are directions in our membership portal for you guys under Rent Perfect's section that gives you instructions on how to sign up too, just so you're aware of that it's always there. But we'll do a little bit more hand holding since we've had this great presentation tonight with it to make sure we get you guys signed up as quickly as we can. So I know I had I have a couple unanswered questions. I've got 3 or 4. I know we really like to try to end on time, but are you guys okay answering these last 3?
No, absolutely. We got all night. We are behind you by 3 hours. It's 6 o'clock here, so we're good.
All right. Let's see. I've got somebody that's asking here. Ms. Tillahan says, if my tenants are constantly contacting me, how can I change that? I think she missed the very beginning of the call where you were talking about the setup of expectations. You want to review that quickly for her again?
Yeah, real quick, I would say, what are the calls? Are the calls your fault, or are the calls their fault? When I say their fault, you need to go back to your lease, and this is why a lease is so important, and a lease lays out the complete relationship. In my lease, I have everything under $50 is my business partner or tenant's responsibility. That allows me to kick back a little bit and say, guys, listen, you got to replace your light bulbs, the toilet problems, the sprinkler heads. Now, if it's air conditionings, if the roof is leaking, if there's some major problems, it's mine. It's mine as a landlord. I just need to kill all the phone calls of all the little nitpicky things that's happening. Now, if you have a property that's old and falling apart, maybe there is a lot of justified phone calls, but you have to realize your position in your relationship, and do you have the proper documentation to give you a little bit of backbone to say, don't call me if it's under $50. And that should kill the little tiny tic-tac, phone calls. I just don't know what the phone calls are about. If I knew what the phone calls were about, maybe I could guide them a little bit further. But if they're just about fixing things around the house, which usually they are, that's great. If they're about the neighbors and what's going on around the house that you have no control of, you just need to tell them, call the police, call the HOA. But you're not security. You're not, the maintenance man. You're the landlord. And if this helps at all, I let my business partners know that I want you to treat this like this is your home. I'm not going to come around and be investigating every little time, and I'm not going to get nitpicky with you. I'm going to leave you alone, let you live your life, and I want you to treat it like your home and treat me like the mortgage company. If you need me, I will be here, but we don't need to be having a daily conversation.
I like that. Kelly says, which credit report is involved with the pull? Is it Vantage Score 3 or FICO?
It's Advantage 3.0 through Experian.
There you go. Perfect. And then let's see. Kathleen says, any costs for these services other than the tenant screenings? Example, preparing a lease, signing up, the sign-up fee for non-members. I don't want non-members to sign up. You guys need to be members of Metrolina REIA for a lot more than just Rent Perfect.
So I will tell you, your members are going to get everything for free. Non-members, there will be a annual fee that they will be paying to be part of the Rent Perfect system. It incorporates in January. If they come in now, they're lucky. But in the future, they will be hit with, in our system, we know if they come in through REIA. We know as a client of ours, REIA member, not a REIA member. And so we treat the REIA members, with all, it's not like we don't take care of our normal customers. We take care of them completely. But when it's REIA, we have a special agreement with National REIA and with all the local REIAs. And we feel like we are REIA too. So you get that additional love that we will go through anything to help you.
Yeah, when you're a REIA member, I'm your customer support, and I know our system really well. So I can help you get your lease template just how you want it. We'll get your application just how you want it. So you have that added customer support when you're a REIA member. And then, no annual fee. So that's pretty huge.
That's awesome. And it's only the Metrolina REIA membership is $197 a year. So I'm sure that the Rent Perfect being free, along with all of our other member benefits, is well worth the $195 per year.
Amen.
You guys to just go ahead and sign up with us to be able to get this for 95 cents.
One-time fee. That's just a once.
One time once. Mine is annual.
Ours is just one time. So it's worth it though. I refer people to REIAs all the time. I don't know how you would be in this without, just the beginning of this meeting, you guys are giving so much support. So I'm a big REIA fan. I'm an REIA member here, so.
Right, and another good thing to make sure that everybody that's on the call knows is it doesn't matter if you invest in North Carolina or South Carolina or what state you invest in. Rent Perfect is nationwide. You guys are a national vendor for National REIA, which filters down to us as Metrolina REIA. So it doesn't matter what state anybody would be in. Rent Perfect is going to be a great resource along with our other national vendors on a national REIA level, not just for Metrolina REIA.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to wake Larry back up, close us out?
I don't know what he's doing over there. Larry, are you good? What's happening here?
I'm here. I want to mention. Did you see the screen about where to join? How to join Metrolina REIA?
MetrolinaREIA.com/join. Yeah.
Yeah. You saw it on the screen, right? You could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So I wanted to mention something. I thought Lorraine's slide was first in the vendors, but it's not. Deanna's was actually first. So I failed to mention Deanna, and you called me out on it a while ago, Candace, through chat.
I did because she joined the meeting late and she didn't get to see her slide. So I'm glad you kind of forgot. So now she gets to see it.
Well, I'm not glad I forgot, but I'm glad you reminded me.
You and Doug, man, you keep my life interesting.
I know, right? I know. So Deanna, we've known her for many, 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 many years. She has a company called SBF Consultants, sbfconsultants.com, and there's her phone number and her email address. But she basically provides all different kind of accounting, bookkeeping, tax planning, financial analysis, business planning. She'll even be an outsourced CFO, a part-time CFO for your company, whatever it is you need, QuickBooks setup, chart of accounts, you name it. And she is a real estate investor. She's done rentals. She's done fix and flip. She's managed a lot of our stuff. So she knows what she's doing, right, Candace?
Yes, she does.
That's great. That's great. So I think that is about all that I have right there, except unless somebody wants to join Metrolina REIA. If you're not already a member, there you have it. So do you have anything else, Candace or Doug?
No, I'd just like to thank Dave and Heather for such a great presentation tonight. And
That was
really
awesome. That was a ton of information. Thank you so much.
yeah, obviously they got a great service, but they spent a lot of time educating our folks and us, you know, with some insight there that is real helpful. And I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug.
So Candace, I will email you that discount link then, and my contact info. If your members have specific questions about our services, they can contact me. I'm happy to answer their questions.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank y'all. Are you going to say good night? Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Take care.